Hey mages, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be having a look at the new meta decks. We've recently had some bans in Standard this past week. Fable, Invoke Despair and the Rekna Bankbuster are all gone for good or for worse. Probably for the better. They did get played a lot. For me especially, Fable and the Bankbuster was played, and Invoke was pretty hard to beat sometimes. So probably a fair lot of bannings, but let me know what you think of those bannings down in the comments. But that means a new meta of new decks. So in the past week, people have been looking around and seeing what decks to play. While Rakdos is under new construction, and maybe Grixis are under new construction as well. There's been 5 decks that have been recently played and sort of taken over at the moment. Just before we go to look at the first deck, if you want to pick any of these cards up, you want to put them together in paper, please check out Cardmarket. They are the world's largest marketplace, and you can go and get all your singles from there as well. But without further ado, let's take a look at the decks. So the first deck that is up in this selection is Selezia Toxic. This is a very hard deck to beat. It all revolves around toxicity, as you will well know. Venerated Rot Piece is a very good card. Whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. The whole idea of this deck is to win by poison and do that poison damage. A player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game, so it's a lot, it's a lot easier than doing 20 damage compared to some decks anyway. This deck is very good. It has protection for these sort of cards, so sometimes it's hard to beat, but there is cards like Skrilev, Defector Might, and a very important card to this deck. Can't block, has Toxic 1. You can pay Phyrexian 2 life or white mana and choose a colour. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from a colour, which means it can't be blocked by the creatures of that colour that turn as well. So very good for getting the damage through. And Tavar's Stand is another way to protect the creatures in this deck as well. Target creature you control gets +X/+X, and you can actually just play this for the 1 green mana and do 0. The +X/+X is just to put some extra power and toughness onto the board as well if you want to onto that creature. But giving it a Hexproof and Indestructible just for 1 mana is pretty good. You just get a bit of an upside if you have some spare mana with this as well. Other creatures in the deck are, where are you? Crawling Chorus. This is Toxic 1. When it dies, it makes a toxic creature as well, so great for blocking. And then early on, if you get this turn 1, doing some damage with it, opponents then potentially, if they kill it, then you get a creature that can't block, that might, but can still do toxic damage, which is really sweet as well. Jawbone Duelist. Now, Double Strike is very good because you do the damage first, do toxic damage, and then you hit again, and you do more toxic damage as well. Jawbone Duelist, great card for the deck, indeed. As well as Slaughter Singer. Toxic 2 this one, so when this does do damage, you'll be doing 2 damage. When another creature you control with toxic attacks, it gets +1/+1 to end a turn, so can bump up your creatures as well, but doesn't increase the toxicity of the creatures, just gives them a bit more power and toughness, which is okay. And talking of more power and toughness, one of the biggest card creature in the deck, the Phyrexian Beast of Bloated Contaminator, 4/4. Now this has Trample. Trample is good on Toxic because if you get over, you get to do the damage as well. So this deals combat damage to the player. You get a Proliferate, so you do the damage with the toxicity, and then you can proliferate and then do it again. Just put some more, another counter on your opponent as well, and potentially, if anything, with counters on, you could then obviously up that on your Proliferate as well, which is pretty sweet. Rest of the cards in the deck, we got Audacity. This is a new card that's been featuring in the deck. Enchant creature gets +2/+0. The Trample is very important, like I said, with the Bloated. This is a good way to get the toxicity through, get those poison counters on, because the creatures are rather small, but this can really help out. When Audacity is put into the graveyard, you get to draw a card. So for 1 mana, this enchantment certainly does a lot in the deck. We got some removal, Destroy Evil, because there is a certain little 4/5 black creature that's around that is still doing a lot of damage. You know what it is. It's Sheoldred, and this is a good way to get rid of Sheoldred. And then we have Skrilev's Hive. Now, this can drain your opponent very hard sometimes when you're playing mono red or anything like that. I found when playing Hive, because you keep losing one life. So be careful how you play this, but it's still very good because you can amass the board. And remember, you've got to do 10 or more poison counters, so this can get down early and really help you, win the games out. But I've had opponents die to this as well, so it's been quite funny when they've played this and it's actually ended up killing themselves. But it's probably a rare thing that happens. Let me know if it's happened to you. It's probably quite a funny thing. Land base for this, I Ganjus, but Seijus, and then we got all the Overgrowns and Razorwoods. Important cards, lands for the decks is Mirex, because that can make a Phyrexian Might. It runs 3 of these in the deck, and then a 4 of the Siege Core. Add 1 mana of any colour, spend this mana only to cast Phyrexian spells. And when you look, Phyrexian, yeah, you're Phyrexian. You get the idea of that card. Very good. There is sideboards to these decks as well, so I'm not going to go through the sideboards, but I will put the full links of the deck in the description, so you can take them and take them out and maybe change them if you want to change the sideboard. But yeah, these decks are the top meta decks at the moment, and they've got the accompanying sideboards. But without further ado, let's get on to the second deck. So coming in at number 4 is the ever-popular Blue-White Soldiers. This deck has always been good and can certainly help out, against the speedier decks, like when they were putting Fable down and, ramping into that turn 4-5, even quicklier to put something really hard into play. But this is a deck that's very much creature-based, 36 creatures and 0 non-creature spells, 24 lands in the deck. It doesn't run any non-creature spells because it does run Thalia. You will see a couple of decks and maybe different configurations of this that will have 2 or 3, maybe 4 different ones, and still run obviously Thalia as well. But this is the full creature package of this, so very synergistic. Really good cards in the deck for me. I've always been Harbin, Vanguard, Aviator, because when you've got all these mass creatures, we've got 1-drops, 2-drops in there. Whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures, you can all get +1/+1 of flying, and that bit of evasion is normally, unless you've got the removal in hand to defeat this card in the deck, it's very hard to beat sometimes, especially if you've got that Thalia's in there, so you might not quite have enough mana as well. And this being a 2-drop, when you can lay down your recruitment officers, your Skrillivs would be protection, which is another card that has found its way into this deck as well for the protection. So it makes it harder sometimes to kill the Harbins and everything like that, and maybe the Thalia can be protected. Or even the Brutal Cathar that will take a blocker out the way. So that's why Skrilliv has definitely come into the Defector Might and does a very, very good job, where not a non-creature spell, but a creature that can help the deck out without a doubt. It then will obviously have its Anthem creatures like Valiant Veteran, pumping up with the soldiers, get +1/+1. And then it's got Siege Veteran that begin a combat, you can put a 1/1 counter on it. It's a deck that amasses very quickly and can get very good aggro wins, this deck. Bit of lifelink. Dennick can help against graveyards as well. It has a bit of everything flashing into play, getting your Resolute Reinforcements in there. So, you get your army with this, you get 2 bodies, and then maybe using your Valiant to come in and pump the team up and getting another big attack for maybe 2, 4, 6, 8 damage on those turns. And then playing the Harbin to get the win when they put the big creature down, or, play the Sheoldred when they play turn 4, turn 5, or like that. And then you just fly over the top, and it doesn't matter that big 4/5 blocker. This just flies over and usually helps the team get the win. Officer, really good for drawing cards. Tap 3 untap soldiers you control, draw a card. Do it in your turn, opponent's turn, when you're leaving up these blockers. When this attack, this makes a soldier as well, so even more field of message. And this will work well against decks that are playing mass removal, because we've got 36 creatures, so they're going to need a lot to keep this deck under control. Land Blaze, special cards in the deck other than, Fortified Beachhead is one that sees play in the Soldiers deck, because it is a soldier-based land card and has 5. You can get pumped up until end of turn. Usually Ganjus, Otiwaras. Mishra's Foundry's in this, an extra creature on the field to 2 turns into, and then it will run the uncommon Secluded Courtyard, because you can choose a creature type, which can be soldiers obviously, and then spend 1 mana of any colour to cast that. So that's a really good budget land for this deck as well. But soldiers, all in all, a very good aggressive deck. If this is the deck you want to play, copy and paste the link and go and give it some matches. Now we go to one of my type of favourite decks. I'm not going to lie, it's mono white midrange. I like the way this type of deck plays. It plays like a control deck. For me, very fun type of deck today, but everyone likes different types of deck. Obviously, got some new additions in this one. I don't generally play the Might Stone in it, but putting in there as a -5/5 to deal with an ultra creature is very good, and drawing 2 cards. Because as you can see, it doesn't run the ability to meld with Urza's Lord's Protector to turn into the Planeswalker, but still at the moment the meta have decided to put this in there, which is, it's an interesting idea to get this in there. It does help deal against some big creatures, but this already has ways to do that as well. Lay down arms, great removal like ossification as well. And then, interestingly, in the main board, because obviously these are all best of 3 decks, doesn't have like the mass removal, but you go to the sideboard, you've got your depopulates and your farewells in there. So yeah, still very good. Ambitious Farmhand comes in, you search it out for a plains card, you're ramping into your big stuff here. Companion will come in, draw you card as well to keep this white deck just churning over. And Guardian of Girapur is a sweet addition to the mono white deck because it ends the battlefield, exile up to 1 target creature artifact control, then you get to return him. So when you've got stuff that like enters the battlefield effects, like Lauren, ends the battlefield, destroy it to 1 target artifact or enchantment, good to bounce. Ambitions, go and find another land, or Companion to go and draw a card as well. Now, interestingly, it does do Artifact as well, so you can bounce your Might Stone, get extra value, kill another creature, or draw 2 more cards. So that is a good interaction. This late game is never going to be a bad card, and it's a 3/3 flyer as well for protection. We have the usual wedding announcement to give the buff and make blockers and get stuff into the field. And then Serra Paragon is a nice addition, a 3/4 flyer. So more evasion with this. But we've got plenty in the graveyard that for mana 3 or less that we could cast as well, like the Guardians. You can just see the plethora of cards that potentially that we could cast with that. Winkhorns, when you're playing game 1, if you're not flying over the top with these, you've got your Wandering Emperor to make them bigger, make creature tokens as well with the Samurais. Then you've got a couple of Sanctuary Warden that comes in with protection shield counters. That is also a very hard card to deal with. And then Eternal Wanderer that can make those, those 2/2 double strikers that can certainly win games, especially when you're putting 1/1 counters with the Wandering Emperor on them as well. It just turns into a real beater, and they eventually could have a flipped wedding announcement and then get 1/1 as well. So the Eternal Wanderer is a good way to clear the board from opponents, keep a single creature at bay, and obviously make win cons with making those Samurai tokens. Different land bases in these, we have the Aganjo, lots of planes. We have Mirix, just for making extra creatures and having toxicity to try and get a little wink on there. Potentially you could. And then the Roadside Reliquary makes obviously a good addition in this deck because we've got Artifact and we have enchantments, so we can pay 2, sack it, and draw cards, which is really good. And obviously that can be rechurned with the Serra Paragon. Like I said, the sideboards for all these decks are in the description as well. Has a good selections. Phyrexian Vindicator, very good card. And then all the removal and help that you need. But Mono White Midrange, very good deck. And has a good sideboard to, attack the meta. And it's a hard deck to beat. So the second best deck at the moment, not to say best deck, but it's the top 2 in the meta, is 5-color Attractor. Attractor is turning out. A lot of people thought it was going to be banned just because it is a very oppressive card. It's a 7/7 flying vigilance, death touch, lifelink that potentially can be cheated into play in certain decks. When it ends the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library for each card type. You can put that card type among the real cards into your hand as well. It's very hard to deal with. Now, obviously, you can just die to a bit of 2-mana removal. But you're already getting the benefit of getting those top 10 cards. So, very good, very hard to deal with. Now, the idea of this deck is to ramp into it. We've got Topiary Stompers that can enter, search for basic lands. We've also got Invasion of Zendikar, 4 of these. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards as well. And we do run a selection of these. We've got 4 forests, 2 mountains, singles of island swamps, and 3 plains. So a good way to do that. And then it has some really good removal. 3 Sunfalls, Excellent for exiling all creatures when opponents are amassing boards and you're already ramping out, so potentially you're playing this quicker as well. And then it'd be left with an incubate token. And then it has Leyline Binding that can just generally sometimes be played for 1 mana because we've got like Proving Grounds, we've got Jetmirs, Sparras, all those different basics. So, you know, Leyline Binding works very well with this, with the spell costing 1 less to cast for each basic land type. And, you know, generally sometimes you can play this turn 2. It's really strong. Removal with Ossification in the main deck as well. And then we have Archangel of Wrath as a 4-of coming in. Kicker in it twice, ramping out. You still get a 3/4 flying lifelink doing damage when it comes in as well. Potentially twice that damage of the 2 damage to any target. Really, really strong fun deck, this one. Herd of Migration. Pay 2, discard it, search life for a basic land, and then it gives you that benefit of gaining 3 life. So it can help you in those days, you know, when you're playing those aggro decks, that 3 life could be really important. And then has Domain. So ramping out, keeping these stacks sometimes if you can for the 7 mana to create a 3/3 green priest token for each basic land type of lands you control, and we've got them all. So that can just amass into, you know, a massive presence on board. And failing that, you get your Atali in. Atali is just a very hard card to beat down. Obviously, I'm not going to say it again, like, it does get removed by removal, but if you keep it onto the battlefield, it has an enter the battlefield effect of each player extra top card of the lobby, and then you may cast those spells without paying their mana cost, but you can pay 9 Phyrexian to turn it into an 11/11 trample, indestructible. When it deals combat damage to player, they get 11, you know, that many poison counters, and it has 11. So that one attack is, you know, unchecked, is a game-winning move, and it has 3 of those in the deck. It's a very good card. As you can see, lots of 4-ofs in this deck. You know, it looks like it should be card short. It's got just so many 4-ofs and just single cards like that. But yeah, this is a very, very fun deck to play and has a lot of power at the top end once you ramp it in. So if you get a chance in there, you know, you've got your early removal, Archangels, Ossifications, Sunfalls to keep it at bay, and then late game you'll be pretty hard to beat. Again, sideboard will be in the description below, but this is 5-color Attractor, and now let's get on to the final top meta deck. So a lot of you may have guessed it, of course, it's Legends. We thought possibly that Rafine was going to be damaged and banned in this, but it turns out the Scheming Seer is staying around for a bit longer. Flying, Ward 1, whenever you attack, target attacking creature can eyes where X is the number of attacking creatures. This is a very good deck with some strong legendary power that was boosted by the addition of Rona, Herald of Invasion. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, untap it. Very good because you can draw a card, discard a card. You can pay 5 Phyrexian to transform it into the 5/5, although I very rarely see that happen. But it turns into a 5/5 trample when it deals damage to that sorcerer's controller. Exiles a card from the hand at random. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you may cast it without paying its casting cost, which the Tolarian Obliterator is pretty decent. But Rona is very good as well, so you can, you know, abuse that tap and untap, and then, you know, draw your way to what you find you need. Now, when you look at it, 30 creatures, 3 non-creatures, because it does run Thalia as a 4-of. But like I said in one of the previous decks, sometimes, you know, decks do run 2 or 3, 4 spells even with Thalia because they're still needed. You know, this is the 3 go for the throat that is in this deck. Now, it's just filled of really good legends. Another card that thought we might bite the dust off, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, is in this deck. So you can see why this deck was thought of. If it wasn't, you know, given a ban with anything, and with the other bans, these were still, you know, this was probably going to be the number 1 deck, and it's turning out at the moment it probably is going to be until, you know, anything is found to beat it. Sheoldred is a very good oppressive card, and when you're mixing it in with the draw, discards, with connives and everything like that, it just turns into, it's just so hard to beat. You're drawing cards, you're gaining all that life back, getting that down early. Now this is, you know, turn 3 play, potentially into your turn 4 play. And at the top end we've got AO, Flying Visions, 5/4, another great legend that has abilities when it dies. Look at the top 7 cards. Any number of non-land permanents with total mana 4 or less. So you're going to get something pretty strong, aren't you? You maybe get your Resurrected. Then it holds up a counter spell or destroy spell. We've got Toulouse in there as well. Enter battlefield Connive. So more draw, discard with this. And Gix. Dealing combat damage, pay 1, draw card. You can see it's just a really good, well-oiled machine, this. And adding the protection, again, one of the most popular cards for me in these top meta decks, Skriliv Defector Might, just does a job. So if you haven't crafted these, you can see you can use these in multiple decks. It's a very, very good card. 1-drop, get that in turn 1, and then hopefully start protecting. It runs the Raven Man, which I love this card. Doesn't see a lot of play, but in this build, each end step, if a player discards a card, then we create a 1/1 token. So you can pay 4 and sink that late mana, but it's only a sorcery, so you can't do it in opponent's turn for the opponent to discard a card as well. Denick in there. No graveyard shenanigans. Cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities. So a very good card there. Has a 2/3 lifelinker and then can come back for its disturb cost as well. So, you know, this deck is just full of really, really strong cards. So you can see why it is one of the top meta decks for me, without a doubt. Very important card. Another card that was, you know, being touted as being banned for the deck to help everyone defeat this deck a bit is Plaza of Heroes. It stayed again. Another reason why this is one of the best decks. The 3 mana of tap, exile the Plaza of Heroes, target legendary creature gains hexproof and indestructible, so you can protect all of those legendary creatures. You've got the might as well to protect. So this is why it's very, very hard to beat. So a very good deck to play. You have to put some reps in to get used to playing it. For me, it's, you know, it's not the easiest deck to play. You know, maybe for newer players or beginners, but the power is there. And with this land, the Sheoldred, the Rafine, it's a very, very strong deck. Other land bases, pretty simple. You're just getting all your double tap lands, your caves, your Seacombs, your Shads, your Dark Slicks, and then it runs a 1 of in the Esper colours of. It runs a 3 of. I was saying it runs all 3 of these type of channel lands. 2 Takenoma, get back from the graveyard, 3 bounce in Otawara, and then some removal that gets around Thalia with Iganju. Sideboard will be there as well, so make sure you go and check out that list. You can copy and paste all of these decks, but this at the moment is the number 1 meta deck. It's Esper Legends. So there was the top 5 meta decks at the moment after we've had all of those bans. Let me know if you're going to try some of these or if you've come across these a lot, and which ones potentially you're going to build as well. Do you take these to your LGS? If so, like I said, pick them up in paper. I've got the link in the pinned comment and in the description. If you're in Europe, you can go and check out that Cardmarket, and it helps support the channel as well. Big shout out to my patrons for all your support as well. If you want to join the Total MTG Army, that's another way to support the channel and show appreciation for the videos. Just go and check out the link in the description as well. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the next video.